So, on Saturday, the Houthis launched an anti-ship ballistic missile toward a Marshall Islands flagged tanker, causing a fire on board. While in the Gulf of Aden, the USS Carney shot down a Houthi missile. It was the Houthis' first direct attack on a U.S. warship since the Houthis began their Red Sea aggression in October. Yesterday, the Houthis claimed to launch a missile toward the USS Louis B. Puller in the Gulf of Aden, though a U.S. defense official also denied the incident occurred. In claiming the alleged attack, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saraya pledged the Houthis would continue their attacks on shipping vessels in the Red Sea, quote, until the aggression is stopped and the siege is lifted on the people of Palestine in the Gaza Strip. Since Hamas's October 7th, 2023 massacre in Israel and the subsequent outbreak of war between Israel and Hamas, the Iran-backed Houthi rebel forces in Yemen have attempted to insert themselves in the conflict in support of Hamas. Acting as part of Iran's so-called axis of resistance, the Houthis launched a series of missiles toward Israel throughout October. When that strategy proved unsuccessful, the rebel group launched a campaign against international shipping in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, attacking or harassing more than 30 vessels directly or tenuously linked to Israel since November 19, 2023. This includes ships transporting cargo to or allegedly docking in Israel, as well as ships whose corporate owners include Israelis in their leadership. The Houthis initially sought to cause direct damage to Israel by launching cruise missiles and drones toward the Jewish state throughout October. However, that strategy proved ineffective against Israeli air defenses, and the attacks had no impact on Israeli policy. This led the Houthis to announce a strategy shift on November 18th from directly targeting Israel to attacking Israeli interests in the Red Sea. In a November 19th statement on X, formerly Twitter, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saraya declared all Israeli ships to be legitimate targets for the Houthis, who soon after extended that strategy to include all ships they claimed were Israel-linked, no matter how tenuous the assumed connection. That day, the Houthis seized the Galaxy Leader, a British-owned and Japanese-operated cargo ship traversing the southern Red Sea. The Houthis took 25 hostages, labeling the ship as Israeli because it is owned by a company registered under Isle of Man headquartered Ray Car Carriers, which is a unit of Tel Aviv Incorporated Ray Shipping. On December 9th, the Houthis further expanded their Red Sea terror campaign by announcing they would target all ships heading toward Israel, regardless of nationality. Saraya also banned all Israeli ships from the Red Sea and Arabian Sea until the Gaza Strip received food and medicinal aid. He further warned all shipping companies to avoid sailing to Israeli ports. Houthi leaders have called their attacks a demonstration of support for the Palestinians, while demanding Israel end its military campaign against Hamas. While the Houthis have thus far failed to sway the international community, their supporters are attempting to shift attention away from Houthi terrorism and toward Israel. Pro-Palestinian supporters have in turn praised the Houthis as heroes standing up for the Palestinians. For example, in an interview with Al Jazeera, British journalist Miriam Francois castigated the global community for focusing on shipping disruptions while children are suffering in Yemen and Gaza. Francois praised the Houthis for standing up for the Palestinians against Israel's so-called genocide, while chastising Britain and other countries for bombing one of the poorest countries in the world because of, quote, a couple of guys in dinghies. Others across social media have echoed those sentiments, passing the Houthis as heroes standing up for the Palestinians, while ignoring the devastation the Houthis have wrought on Yemen for years, not to mention the current disruptions to Red Sea shipping lanes. Many of those voices have defended the Houthis and Hamas alike as freedom fighters, while ignoring the atrocities these groups have perpetrated at the behest of the Iranian regime. These voices have fallen into the Houthis' trap. The Houthis' goal is to coax the world into blaming Israel's war on Hamas for the disruptions to Red Sea shipping lanes. But while the Houthis have succeeded in disrupting these shipping lanes and gained some support on social media, they have thus far failed to create the desired pressure on Israel from world governments. Instead, the United States and its allies have responded militarily against the Houthis both in the Red Sea and in Yemen itself. On December 31st, U.S. Navy helicopters sank 3 Houthi speedboats attacking a container ship in the Red Sea. As the Houthis continued their attacks in the beginning of January 2024, the United States and its partners issued stern warnings of further consequences. But the Houthis remained steadfast, continuing their attacks and reiterating that only Israeli capitulation in Gaza would restore security in the Red Sea. On January 9th, the Houthis launched their largest missile and drone barrage to date, targeting a U.S. vessel they claimed was providing aid to Israel. U.S. warplanes and U.S. and British destroyers shot down 21 drones and missiles. Soraya called the attack, quote, an initial response to the treacherous assault on our naval forces by the U.S. enemy forces, referring to the December 31st incident that sank 3 Houthi attack boats. The Houthis' next attack, an anti-ship ballistic missile fired on January 11th from Yemen into international waters in the Gulf of Aden, compelled a stronger response. Later that day, U.S. and British forces bombed more than 60 Houthi targets across Yemen in what President Biden called a direct response to unprecedented Houthi attacks against international maritime vessels in the Red Sea. The United States and its partners have continued strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen since, while the Houthis, with Iranian support, have pledged to continue their assaults on international shipping lanes in the Red Sea while promising retaliation against the United States. This relentless assault on shipping in the Red Sea is made possible by Iran, which has made no secret of its support for the Houthis, providing weapons, training, and other support since the group began its terrorist campaign in Yemen a decade ago. While Iran has denied U.S. accusations of involvement in the Houthis' attacks, it has continued to voice support for the Houthis, who in turn have reportedly turned to Iran for more weaponry. The U.S. Navy has also uncovered evidence of Iranian support, seizing Iranian-made anti-ship cruise missiles and parts for ballistic missiles, all bound for the Houthis. Iran has also reportedly sent members of its Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, as well as Hezbollah, to Yemen to advise the Houthis on their Red Sea attacks. Iranian sources told Reuters this month that Iran has provided the Houthis with advanced drones, anti-ship cruise missiles, precision strike ballistic missiles, and medium-range missiles. Further, IRGC commanders and advisors are reportedly providing data and intelligence support to determine which ships traversing the Red Sea are headed toward Israel. In response, the United States has increased pressure on the Houthis and their Iranian sponsors, announcing on January 17th that it would redesignate the Houthis as a specially designated global terrorist. The designation is expected to go into effect within 30 days to allow for the creation of new humanitarian aid processes in Yemen, and will remain in place until and unless the Houthis cease attacking vessels in the region. While the Houthi attacks on Israel in October were aimed specifically at causing damage to the Jewish state, the shift in the Houthi strategy targeting international shipping represents a more global agenda. It is an attempt to increase international pressure on Israel to end its assault on Hamas. The Houthis are attempting to create a causal link between global shipping delays and the associated costs and Israel's perceived aggression against Gaza. Houthi propaganda ties attacks directly to Palestinian suffering in Gaza in order to create a paradigm whereby the international community shifts blame to Israel for the economic consequences of the Houthi attacks and thereby applies pressure on Israel to cease its operations in Gaza. Instead of increasing pressure on Israel, however, the Houthi campaign in the Red Sea has instead spurred the international community into action. On December 18th, the United States announced Operation Prosperity Guardian, a multinational maritime force under the umbrella of the Combined Maritime Forces to ensure freedom of navigation in the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The force includes 9 other countries, including the United Kingdom, Bahrain, Canada, France, and Italy. In recognition of the threat of Houthi aggression, the United States began targeting Houthi military sites in Yemen this month. Further, Iran has sent its own warships to the Red Sea, increasing the risk of direct confrontation between it and the United States. Rather than increasing pressure on Israel, the Houthis' Red Sea strategy has globalized the Yemen conflict. By instigating direct international military mobilization, the Houthis have drawn Western forces into Yemen, expanding the conflict beyond its previous incarnation as a proxy war between the Saudi Arabia-backed Yemeni government and the Iran-backed Houthis. Rather than creating international pressure on Israel, Houthi aggression in the Red Sea has brought the United States and Iran closer to direct conflict while opening the Houthis to U.S. strikes. The Houthi assaults have therefore succeeded in weakening their already tenuous position in Yemen while exposing Iran's direct involvement and moving Iran and the United States closer to direct confrontation.